the navigation of chance.
It's called a Chinese allegory map, or the Sao Feng map.
Sao Feng has these. He hands them off to Will at Singapore.
You have the charts.
It plays a very key role because it's the whole reason they get to find Jack Sparrow. It's basically a map to the other world, to Davy Jones' locker.
The route to the farthest gate.
Is it solving a mystery?
We want our saying
That's why the map was
profound.
created. Yeah, that's right.
That's the moment.
We had a big meeting. Gore knew it was important, so Gore brought everybody into the room. Crash and Chris and Rick and John and everybody, and we threw out all these crazy ideas, like maybe it's lit from underneath and it projects stars, maybe it's an origami, maybe it's the globe that expands from a Chinese lantern. One of the references was sort of a ring-type map that everybody liked, but at the end of the meeting, we're like, let's go with the globe idea. It's like, okay, the globe. I went and I got a Chinese lantern and I started painting on it, and it started feeling like a National Geographic crafts project. It didn't have the coolness of like a big map. And it just looked dumb. It just didn't work. So, this is not necessarily the illustration, but it's just like the feeling of having a cool map. So there's an area on the map which is the physical world, but then beyond that, I was thinking it needs to have realms that aren't in the physical world. It's almost like a big combination lock.
It looks one way, you turn it, it makes sense to something here.
That's right.
But then when you only rotate one section, these still make sense, but it adds another element.
In a way, it's like, you know, the 9 rings of Hades, but it's much more physical. It starts, the middle of the map would be literal geography, and then it starts to expand to realms that are a little more metaphysical.
This is the real world, this is the inner world, this is the transition between the real world and the dead world. Now you're in the dead world. How do you get out?
By the end, you get out into this celestial realm.
It's not getting to the land of the dead that's the problem. It's getting back.
Gore knew he wanted a shot of a phrase being revealed.
What's cool about this kind of writing, that's maybe the thing that you should rotate, is this kind of writing written over a line.
And I was thinking, but if it's so obvious that it's the same typeface, that's not much of a secret, because that clearly would line up. And I thought, oh, well, you disguise it as Chinese. So when you rotate them together, it becomes English. But, but before that, it looked Chinese.
Nice.
They are rotating the rings and trying to line different rings up to reveal phrases.
As you rotate this, it's just that simple.
And he loved it, but he was like, shouldn't, when the rings turn, shouldn't the shapes of the countries become something else? And I thought, yeah, it should become a Chinese dragon. And then I just started doing a bunch of tests. I cut out a bunch of rings and just started drawing and seeing how interesting shapes would line up with each other. Sometimes the land formations line up just to be land formations, but then sometimes they line up to actually be magic shapes.
Oh, here's something else that's cool, is the dragon. You see the dragon that forms now?
This is actually real blood. I poked myself, so I just thought I'd dip it. And then I augmented it, I think with, this is ink, but some of this is real blood, and then you can, these are actually my fingerprints in blood. So my blood went into this map. Originally, we were hoping to actually make a paper version of the map, like origami, that would turn.
You know, with the humidity that we have down here, it's just a lot of the challenge we had was to, you know, find something that wasn't gonna be affected by the elements. So we have these brass rings that all lift up like that.
Yeah, it seems way more complex than it should be, but once you realize that the weather can affect it so much, you'd get to a point where the rings probably wouldn't turn anymore. It was ridiculous. Don't ever do that at home. The map has a few close-ups, so we had to create the entire map fully detailed in all areas because certain secrets are revealed.
See, the problem, you want the eyeball to be the solution. The actual rolling answered the riddle. The eyeball rolls past,
yes.
We tilt up, you're kind of zoned out, and you then reach down and turn this.
This is sort of a crucial part because we knew that it was going to sort of become something else.
Up is down.
Well, that's just maddeningly unhelpful.
He also notices that the boat itself in the center, if you turn it upside down, that sort of inspires him because that's a clue in itself.
And that's where you turn the inner wheel. This ship goes upside down. Yeah.
Not sunset. Sundown. And rise.
If you're clever enough, if you study it enough, it will take you to places that you can't get any other way.
We're good and lost now. For certain, you have to be lost to find the places can't be found.
And that sort of is a whole theme in Pirates, which is the more modern the world gets and the more efficient it gets, we start losing some of the magic and losing some of the connection with these metaphorical realms that humans used to be able to go into a lot more easily than they can today.
Gentlemen, I wash my hands of this weirdness. Now up, down.
I have the extreme privilege of being one of the first people in the creative process when a film's being made. What I'll do is come in and sit down with Gore and he'll describe scenes, characters, and it's usually something that needs to be developed and conceptualized because it doesn't exist in our world.
Maybe this look and this could be combined, you know, so that it's he's holding this with, you know, with the right hand.
Pirates 1 had the cursed pirates, the skeletons. In 2, one of the first things that he said was, you know, we got to come up with the new curse. And one day he had scribbled a little drawing. It was just like this little pirate with a clamshell in his eye. And he goes, I'm thinking like this. Like, what if they were just kind of living on the bottom of the ocean all this time? Initially, you know, when I was designing these characters, it was just kind of a conglomeration of, you know, shells and mollusks and sea anemones. We realized that we had to kind of start focusing on one element to really make these characters stand out individually. It's funny, you look at the expanse of the ocean, you think, oh my gosh, there's just millions of ideas, but there are only a few really good ideas, you know? A jellyfish head guy didn't quite work, you know, and sea slug face actually made it in, I think.
I like sea anemone mouth guy. Because what did he say? There's something.
The challenge becomes, how do you integrate, you know, certain elements into it and still make it look cool and not make it look like something goofy? So it was kind of matching the fish or creature to the body type and personality. You really didn't want to lose that human aspect because they were once people. And if they become too fish-like, then they just become too creaturey and you stop believing that they were an actual human being. The hammerhead guy, even though, you know, it's got a hammerhead, you know, head, the rest of the body still has that human aspect.
To the captain's cabin!
The pufferfish guy, you know, just half of his face is part of that fish, and the rest of his body, you know, was a lot of looking at Howard Pyle kind of paintings and that keeping the costume integral to what was going on and to the character as well. When we first started designing and talking about the Cursed Crew, Gore said, you know, we got to come up with the captain of this crew and the ship. And that was a very intimidating, you know, thought because we knew he had to be bigger and command much more, you know, attention and power than the rest of these guys we were designing.
I am the sea.
One of the crew guys I'd come up with had some tentacles coming off of his chin. And Gore said, oh, that's kind of cool. It looks kind of like a beard or something. And immediately I thought of Blackbeard and, you know, how intimidating that guy looks with this big giant beard and, this, you know, just this attitude. And an image popped into my mind and I said, I got it. I know what it is. And I went home and this was the drawing I'd done. everything kind of fell into place, you know, giving him kind of a peg leg with a crab leg, and, you know, one crab claw that he could kind of grab somebody with. Even the hat is kind of a different hat. It's got like horns, you know, devilish. Everything about him referenced something classic about a pirate captain. Gore looked at the piece and he was just like, oh, he was sucked into it. He just goes, man, that's the captain of this ship.
Full bore and into the abyss!
You could see him at the bow of the ship, you know, and the wind blowing his coat, and it became more than just a study. It became really who this character was.
I cannot be summoned like some mongrel pup.
I feel real blessed to be able to have a job and do what it is that I love to do. To me, it's a privilege. Anytime an artist can make a living at doing their art, when you get to work with someone like Gore, it does become an emotional experience, and you feel like you're a part of something that is going to be around for a very long time.
So there's planks, you know, I don't know, play with it a little bit.
Even though it's just a movie, you know, it means everything to me. And the pride I feel when I see an actual drawing, you know, projected on screen, the way I drew it initially is just, it's the biggest form of compliment you could possibly ever get.
Welcome to Singapore. Point.
I'm Rick Heinrichs. I'm the production designer on Pirates 2 and 3. We're on the set of Singapore. It's a set that is sort of kicking off our Pirates 3 shooting. The actors are coming tomorrow, so it gives me a time to come in and kind of give you an idea of what we're doing here. In the process of working with Gore, we get a sense of place and character from him. We'll come up with conceptual drawings which actually just give a feel to the place. One of the earliest drawings we did was a picture of a woman in a boat under a forest of stilts that described the water-based introduction to Singapore that we had in mind. And it was kind of from that inspirational sketch that we took things to the next step and the next step. We're at the Bridge of Sighs corner of Singapore. I call it that because we've got these wonderful sort of crowning bridges that overlap across each other. This is where Elizabeth first enters the set. It's a good way of seeing from the water level how the huts are towering over you. The forest of stilts underneath that gives you a sense of how sort of rickety everything is and reinforces our sense of unease and exoticism that accompanies her entry into this world. Singapore is actually geographically in a crossroads of Asia, and at the time that our movie takes place, there were a lot of influences from the area, Indonesian influences, Chinese, Malaysian. Behind me is one of the land-based alleyways that characterize our architecture here. A lot more of this architecture is actually elements that we have pulled out of a lot of Chinese reference from the 18th century, 17th century. The marketplace and the human activities and restaurants and feeding and all of that go on as a background to the action that we're going to be having. We like to strive for as much reality as possible. And spices and mushrooms and fennel and sugar and cinnamon, and we've also got a great deal of fish and crabs. Some of them are fake and some of them are actually real fish. Something like this, I mean, you just can't manufacture that. The bathhouse is kind of a nasty example of hygiene. We've got a lot of mushrooms growing out of the tubs. There will be a lot of people, in fact, with mushrooms on their shoulders and covering their faces. When the water comes out, we'll add some thickeners to it and color to it, and it's going to look rather unwholesome. The main Chinese pirate is played by Chow Yun-fat. This is going to be his spa with a sense of a history and an imperial dragon behind. Give him a sense of majesty and command.
More steam.
We knew that we were going to need to have steam coming up through them, that there were going to be gaps between the boards. Allowed us to kind of have fun with the character of the boards. So one of the fun things that we did was design the entire floor to have a meandering, planked look to it. We're down underneath the bathhouse now. This is where all of the steam gets pumped into the bathhouse. There's a big boiler here. All the pipage you see is delivering water to the tubs and steam to the air and oil and everything wonderful for our day spars up there. The fun that we had with this is just, once again, creating a sense of moisture and fungus. And in fact, I'm looking around, I'm thinking we need more mushrooms down here. This is a good place for more mushrooms. So I'll be giving that note to somebody right away. It's just been a wonderful design process and such a pleasure to actually stand on a set with all of these kind of primal, natural forms of life, water, stone, wood. I just don't often get the opportunity to work with those things in such an integrated and splendid way that I feel that the set's turned out as.
I went to meet Johnny Depp in 2003, I think, or maybe even 2002, and we began to talk about his costume for Jack Sparrow, and I asked him what kind of pirate he wanted to be, and he said, I want to be a rock and roll pirate. And I said, okay, have you got anybody in mind? And he just said, this is between you and me, but I want to be Keith Richards. Keith Richards' character is the keeper of the pirate book.
I call on Captain Teague, keeper of the code.
Code is the law.
We sort of decided that he didn't go out on the open seas plundering. He was more of a stay-at-home in the castle kind of pirate. We wanted to make him more elaborate. You know, it is Keith Richards after all. So Johnny's costume is much more of a working guy pirate, and this is a bit of an aristocratic pirate. A year ago, Celeste and I went to meet him to measure him. But just because we knew he was going on tour and to save time, we took 6 silk pre-made garments with us to see which shapes work best, which colors work best, what he liked. And he actually chose a navy blue silk damask coat. And it had this embroidery, which had been an old altar cloth that we'd cut round and laid on. But unfortunately, when we showed the director, he didn't like the color. So I called someone I knew at the flea market in Paris, and she sent us a box of old silk damask curtains. And I think at this point Celeste was, ready with the knife on the wrist, because we needed a photo double and possibly a stuntman. So we had to make 3 identical costumes from scratch. And there's never enough materials. And this is almost a patchwork coat from 3 sets of curtains so that she could make 3 identical ones.
And the fabric had to be dyed.
It had to be dyed because it was too red. On camera, it would have been orangey red, and we wanted a bluer red.
I had to cut the fronts and then mark all the fronts and everything that has to be marked out and then sent to the embroiderer with the sample so that he can then embroider it all on the fabric. Then
he embroiders it with a computerized machine. He scans the pattern and then he digitally applies the embroidery.
The lace was an antique piece, and that is one of the things that we weren't able to multiply, so we did have to make it so we could exchange it between his shirts.
I think this was a stray piece of velvet. It's actually painted velvet. It's not embossed as it looks. We didn't see Mr. Richards again until the week before he shot. So then we showed up again with actually a completely different costume. But he remembered the embroidery. He was really delighted we kept that as part of the costume. And I think he was a very, very happy boy. He loved being dressed up. He felt like a real pirate. And I think he wore it rather well.
Keep to the code. Aye, the code. There's the code to consider.
The code.
Pirate's code.
The Pirate Code Book. Pirate Code Book was something when we got our hands on the script and I read it, I thought, what an opportunity. I knew that, Gore's very detail-oriented and I wanted to give him options to shoot. I knew that there was things meant to be in the code book, parlay that's in the script that had to be in there.
Parlay?
And then the scripted line that we had about, the Pirate King being able to call war. And also, there was a pirate code, like Blackbeard had a pirate code, and a few of the other pirates of that time had them. And for the most part, they kind of said the same thing. It was like, whoever spots the ship first gets the first gun, the best of the pick. Musicians must play every day, but Sunday. If you're marooned, you get a gun with one shot, that kind of thing. So those are things that we put into the Pirate Code Book.
This is an actual old book that a friend of mine had. But I'm going to have these refabricated and we'll put them on this. That's what I like. I just want to run it past you.
I think the writers were talking about something like this, and Gore's like, no, it's got to be huge.
These are fantastic locks. Yeah, if you can go in there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's nice.
So we're going to do this and this with these clasped, and then we'll come up with something cool in the middle.
There was elements where leather was ripped off and the binding and the wood underneath it. The old methods where, the wood was exposed and you could see how they did it. And also there was, the paper, the vellum or the parchment that we were going to use.
The paper is supposed to be like vellum, which the original, what they used to use is, vellum is actually from the intestines of, is it sheep?
We had a meeting with Gore, and Jerry happened to be there, and I was just trying to get some information from Gore, and this is in the very preliminary stages of the book.
Now this we have to work on, because that's too contemporary.
No, this is just the sizes off. Gore's like, no, it's got to be this, and
there's just scribbles here and stuck pages, and
Jerry chimes in, yeah, you got to have, recipes for rum.
Maybe like a recipe for rum in there or something. Absolutely. That's what the pirates would do. They would keep their rum recipe right next to their duties of the king thing,
And the brothel in Singapore.
Well, Singapore, you have a name, Rosie's Tavern, right.
Yeah.
With some X's or something,
Arabic and Chinese writing.
Did they have lipstick in those days? A lot of that is already in here.
Where?
A lot of that within this.
No, but I mean in this page.
All right. I walked away from that meeting and a little beat up, and I was like, boy, I wasn't ready for that. So I said, you know what, next time I show him this book, it's going to be done. So I got our standby painter, Tony Leonardi.
I gotta get to work.
And James Byrkit, who's a conceptual artist.
So usually I work right next to Gore and we sketch a lot. And then Kris Peck asked me to help on this super prop.
We came up with some little stick figure hobo type drawings, and he would do these in the corner. We would tear the book, and then we would sew it back up, and we'd take a torch and burn it, and through the seam or something, or the hole of the burning, you could actually see some of these stick figures or how to attack a ship, or something like that.
This is actually a map to the rum locker that some desperate pirate put together. Shows you how to walk 10 paces from the palm tree to the rum locker. It's probably the most valuable thing in the code book.
Welcome to the Caribbean, lad.
In here it tells you who the pirate lords are, what their pieces of eight are, what seas they are a pirate king to, and the lords, and how a pirate lord becomes king. And all those things are revealed in here. It's kind of... Actually, I shouldn't even be talking about it right now, to be honest with you. We tore and burnt and took wax and took fake blood and took some sunflower seeds and, rum and wine stains and, everything we could think of. We kind of threw the kitchen sink at it to get that texture and detail. It weighed like 80 pounds. It's got 1,000 pages in it.
I feel like I pulled a tree stump out of the ground. I've been guesstimating the weight by trying to lift it. Too heavy for a prop.
I showed it to Gore and Johnny and got really good responses from them. So the next day we're going to go shoot it in first take. Keith had to open up the cover and he had to flip, I think, 3 pages. Nailed it great on the first take. By the second take, 10 minutes in between, whatever, he goes to open it up and he you know, can't get it open because the thing's so heavy. So he put it back down, and he said, it's a movies, you know, the luggage never weighs as much. And we went back behind the set, and we took a saw, and we cut half of it out. We cut all the extra pages.
The book that was constructed was a little too heavy to open. So they're cutting out the inside of the book.
All right, here's the book. Okay. Pirate movies don't come along very often, so, you know, if you look back over history and how many pirate movies have been made, there's only a handful of prop masters that's had that opportunity, so when that opportunity presented itself, it doesn't get any better than that.